In this lecture, we're going to take a look at some of the basic elements of Java. We're going to look at data types, we're going to look at basic input and output, we'll look at comments, and talk a little bit about mathematical operators, reserved words, kind of the functional syntax components of the language. So let's start by building on a basic program that looks very familiar to what we did in previous lectures with the Hello World program. This one's called Basic Java Elements. And what I'm going to go ahead and do is, the first thing I'm going to do is put 2 slashes into my code. These are called comments. Any single line that follows 2 slashes, notice in JGrasp it's going to turn orange for us, is what is called a comment. So I'm going to zoom in a bit on that. And what you'll notice is that there I can leave notes to myself. So let's do basic data types. And what I'm going to do is leave comments throughout the code to help you follow along with what each piece of this code is doing. Because you're going to notice that we're going to have multiple lines in this program. And in your case, if you were to leave comments in your code, what you would more than likely be doing is leaving notes to yourself. So in 6 months when you come back to your program, you remember what it does. Or if other people on your development team read it, they know what the code does. But for now, I'm just going to use comments like this. These are single line comments. There are multi-line comments. Notice if I just start typing, the text is black. That means that it's not a comment. So what's cool about single line comments is I can put anything behind them, and they're actually ignored by the compiler. They will not be converted to machine code. They're literally just sticky notes in the code for the programmer. So let's take a look at some of the basic data types. So I'm going to go with our simple system.out.println program that we did before. I'm going to put the statement in there, and we're just going to print to our main output window, which in this case is going to be the JGrasp console, some different types of output. So first type of output we have is what's called an integer. And an integer is a basic data type in Java. It's a whole number. So make it simple. It can be positive, it can be negative, but integral numbers are whole numbers. They have no fractional point. So the easiest way to recognize them is they have no decimal. I'm going to copy and paste this. There are many more of these, by the way, in the book. What I'm going to do is look at the popular data types. Okay, so we'll just look at the more popular ones, and then you can go through the book and determine some others. Doubles are numbers that do have a fractional component. And in this case, you can tell a double from an integer by the fact that it has a decimal point. So fairly straightforward, right? Anytime I talk about an integer, I'm talking about a whole number. Anytime I talk about a double, I'm talking about a number with a fractional point. Again, they can be negative. Other data type that we will deal with are called Booleans. Unlike numerical values, Booleans can either be true or false. And notice when I type the word true, it turns blue. Purple, and you'll notice that true is a reserved word of the language. We talked about that last class. Notice that public static void, public class, these are words that turn purple. They're reserved by the Java programming language because they have special meaning to the Java programming language. Okay, so I'm going to go down a little bit more. I could also print out false if I wanted to, and actually I'll make a note of that. They're the only 2 values. Boolean, by the way, means 2. Well, it doesn't really, it's after George Boole, but you can start thinking of anything that related to George Boole, like binary values, Boolean algebra, true or false. Some other languages use yes or no. Some other languages use 0 or 1. In Java, it's just true or false. And then finally, we've got 2 others. We've got characters. And characters are going to be any single character between single quotes. So there's the character C, and I'll copy and paste a few more. And here's the character 1. There's a difference. Actually, let's use 7. Notice a difference. We'll back out here a little bit. On line 18, I have the character 7, and up on line 8, I have the integer 7. Okay, the item on line 18 is the character 7. It actually just means print the symbol that represents the quantity 7. The line number 8, where I have the integer 7, actually says give me the quantity 7. They're both actually represented by different underlying binary values, and as we get more into binary, we can talk a little bit more about that and data representation next week. But notice that the character 7 is different from the quantity 7, and you know this to be a fact. You could write down that you have 7 air conditioners on a piece of paper, and that symbol 7 just represents how many, but then if somebody made you carry 7 air conditioners, you'd realize that they're heavy. One is the actual quantity of items, the other is just the symbol that represents the quantity. So after characters, we can build on that, and we can actually have strings. Strings are a series of characters pulled together between double quotes. And you'll notice that, again, strings are just, think of like if you've ever made decorations in kindergarten or whatever, where you took some string and you put some popcorn on it, and you strung the popcorn together and hung it up to make a nice decoration. In this case, we're stringing characters together. Strings always come between double quotes. Characters always come between single quotes. One odd thing that confuses people, though, is you can actually have a single character string. So now on line 22, I have the string C, and on line 17, I have the character C. One is a string, one is a character. What's the difference? Well, technically one's an object, one isn't. But as we move forward, you'll notice that there are some subtle differences. There's different ways. Strings are actually a robust data type called an object that we're going to talk about as we move forward in this class, and you can actually do more with objects, whereas a character is what's called a primitive data type within Java. And actually, that's really a good point to take a look at. Let's change the title up here. So instead of basic data types, let's talk about these items as primitive data types. And then down here, we'll start to get into objects. What makes something a primitive data type? A really good example of thinking about primitive data types would be to think about the periodic table of the elements. This idea that what makes something an element is that it can't be broken down any further. I mean, it's already the smallest component or quantity that can be, unless you get into molecular components, obviously. But in this case, an integer, it's just the number 7. We can't break it down into anything else. A double, it's 7.14. We can't break it down into anything else. A Boolean is true. We can't break it down into anything else, right? They're primitive data types in Java. They are the smallest component they can be. A character, C, the character 7, they can't be broken down anymore. In the case of an object, in the case of an object, something like a string, notice that we can break a string down. We can break this down into its constituent characters. Okay. Notice in this case with the string C, although you say, well, you can't really break that down any further. What I could do is actually break that out into a single character. All right. So the double quotes indicate strings, and the single quotes indicate characters. And hopefully, as we work with those more, some of that clarification some of that'll come through a little bit better, and we'll talk more about it too. So these are the basic data types in Java, and once we get the basic data types together, we can go ahead and we can start to do some things. So let's take a look real quick at one process that we can utilize, and we'll call it concatenation, if I can spell it. Concatenation is the process of gluing two data values together. In Java, the concatenation operator is the plus sign. So one of the things that you've noticed in all of my system.out.println statements up to this point is I've only been printing a simple item, like true, C, the 7, hello class. What if I want to glue some stuff together? What if I wanted to say something like, a character, and next to that statement, print a simple character statement, or print a number, or later on we're going to actually be getting input from the user, and what if I want to go ahead and I want to add that user's input to my output? So I can customize hello world and make it say something like hello Jason. Well, in Java, all we do is put a plus sign in there, and then the item we want to print. And you'll notice what I've done here on line 28 is to go ahead and glue the string a character colon space to the the string a character colon space to the character C. So this process of gluing things together inside of a print statement, later on we'll do this in other places, is called concatenation. And I'll just put gluing two items together. Well, it's usually a string. And what's nice about concatenation is it allows us to customize our output. So this process can work for other things. You should probably be asking yourself the question at this point, what happens if I try to concatenate two numbers? Well, guess what? We haven't talked about mathematical operators yet, but if you try to concatenate 2 plus 2, you're going to get 4. All right, so we'll look at that output. And then let's do one other thing, and we'll actually glue the string 2 to the string 2 and see what output we get. So let's actually go ahead and run this. I'm going to compile that. And then I'm going to make a bigger window down here, and we're going to run the program. Let's scroll up. Now, first item we should print out, we should get 7, we should get 7.14, we should get true. So let's see how we did down here. 7 printed, 7.14 printed, true printed, the character C printed. You can see that both in the window at this point. 7 printed, hello class printed, the C printed. But here's what's cool, right? When we get down to concatenation on line 20, notice that a character C printed because we glued the C to the previous character. Did I have to do that? No, but I just wanted to demonstrate the process. Notice that the item on line 30, when we concatenate two integer values, the plus sign actually has a different meaning. It means actually add. So notice the context of the operator, or the plus operator in this case, changes how it operates. And notice at the bottom, when we concatenate two strings, we get 22. The idea here is that there's some context occurring. So you need to be aware of your data types when using the plus operator. So in this case, you might expect on line 32 that you would glue two items together, but in this case, because on the left-hand side of the operator, on the right-hand side of the operator, you have integer values, you end up actually getting math.